Hello and welcome back. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's start with a check at the top headlines. The first American pontiff, Pope Leo, has given its Christmas sermon where he has highlighted the plight of Palestinians in Gaza, asking worshippers to think of families living in tents, exposed to rain and cold. He has also said a Palestinian state is essential to peace. An official at the SBU Security Service has said Ukrainian long-range drones hit oil product tanks in the Russian port of Temeryuk and a gas processing plant in Russia's Orenburg. Authorities say U.S. immigration agents were involved in a shooting in Glen Burnie, Maryland, during an operation targeting two men alleged to be in the country illegally. Officials say the driver rammed ICE vehicles and drove at agents, prompting gunfire. 14 countries, including France, Britain and Germany, condemned Israel's approval of 19 new settlements in the occupied West Bank, warning the move undermines peace efforts and prospects for a Palestinian state. According to local authorities, at least 5 people were killed and 35 others injured when a suspected suicide bomber detonated explosives inside a mosque during evening prayers in Maiduguri, the capital of Nigeria's Borno state. While so far no group has claimed responsibility. Acting chairman of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Tariq Rahman, has arrived in Dhaka after nearly 17 years in exile. He's emerged as a leading contender for Prime Minister ahead of the February 12 election, as he was cleared of corruption and other charges after ex-Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was ousted. Saudi Arabia said it hopes Yemen's Southern Transitional Council will end an escalation after UAE-backed forces seized control of the southern provinces of Hadramaut and Mahara. Saudi Arabia said a joint Saudi Emirati military delegation arrived in Aden on December 12 to press for an urgent STC withdrawal amid Yemeni backlash over forced invasion of the Yemeni islands. Torrential rains unleashed widespread flash flooding and mud flows across Southern California. Fire Department spokesperson Christopher Prater said that in the east of Los Angeles, emergency crews spent much of the day answering dozens of rescue calls and pulling drivers to safety. Now, Russia has said that its armed forces gained control over the settlement in Zaporizhia region in southeastern Ukraine, while Ukraine has said that its armed forces attacked multiple Russian strategic infrastructure. The Russian Ministry of Defense has said that in its latest report, Russian forces have brought under control the Zarychonoy settlement in Zaporizhia and attacked Ukrainian troops in the direction of Sumy and Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine over the past 24 hours. The ministry has also said that over the past day, Russian forces have struck Ukrainian military industrial enterprises, energy facilities, transportation infrastructure, and temporary deployment points of Ukrainian troops and foreign mercenaries across 147 locations. Meanwhile, the report says that a synthetic rubber plant, which was located in the Russian city of Yefremov in the Tula region and was used to produce components for plastic explosives and key raw materials for solid rocket fuel, was also attacked. It also reported that the Ukrainian forces struck a Russian base for unmanned vessel storage and maintenance in Crimea. Joining me in this discussion now is Peter Baum, who's the editor at Weekly Blitz in London. Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for joining us in this discussion. How do you see the latest attacks carried out by Russia? And how do you think Ukraine is now expected to respond?
Yeah, good afternoon to you and to all your listeners out there, and thank you for having me on. it seems that both sides are upping their military attacks in the last 72 hours. We know that Ukraine have had quite a lot of success, which must have shocked the Putin cabinet by the various car bombs that have exploded, one killing a senior Russian military officer, and the other where two policemen were killed right in the heart of the Kremlin's power base. In addition to that, Ukraine are claiming some successes in bombing Russian energy facilities, and that has been verified by a number of external military sources. Russia, for its part, excuse me, quite rightly, have also been claiming successes in terms of the amount of landmass that they continue to occupy. All this going on whilst apparently both sides and the EU and other various interested parties are currently considering a plan put forward by Zelensky. So one can only think that whilst the Russians are looking at this plan, which we apparently think they are, these proposals, simultaneously they're trying to make as much inroads into Ukrainian territory as possible for the time when both sides hit the negotiation table, if that's doable. But at the moment, it seems that rather than lessen the amount of military activity going on between the two sides, it's as it was, and with successes quite rightfully and understandably claimed by both sides. So I guess the response from Putin and his cabinet is the key to where we're going. Even if it's a positive response, the analysts looking very closely at this conflict don't see any sign of Putin scaling back on his successful achievements to date in claiming more and more Ukrainian territory.
All right, and how do you view this particular gain in Zaporizhzhia particularly that Russia is now claiming to have taken?
Sorry, was your question how do I view the particular proposal?
I just wanted to ask your opinion on how do you see Russia saying that it's gained even some regions of Zaporizhzhia? How significant is that?
Okay. Russia's objective has been clear from the outset of the war, and those objectives have not changed, which is to occupy and claim for its own sovereign territory as much Ukrainian land as she can possibly get her hands on during this conflict, and she has successfully achieved that objective. Now, whether she has enough or whether she wants more will be determined in the weeks and months to come. But at the moment, it seems that she's successfully achieved her objective. What she hasn't been successful in achieving is completely defeating Ukraine, who have surprised every military analyst and every country that follows these kind of events with the way that Ukraine has stood up to Russia and indeed has imposed some pretty devastating critical damage on Russian infrastructure, specifically the energy producing refineries.
All right. Well, thank you for now, Mr. Baum, for joining me in this discussion. And with that, we're going to proceed. Now, a group of 14 countries, including France, Britain and Germany, condemned Israel's approval of 19 new settlements in the occupied West Bank. The joint settlement and the statement released by the French Foreign Ministry emphasized opposition to annexation and settlement expansion. The countries listed were Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Iceland, Ireland, Japan, Malta and the Netherlands, Norway, Spain and the United Kingdom. The group stressed that expanding settlements harm long-term peace efforts and the Gaza peace plan. Meanwhile, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar responded saying the new settlements are on Israeli territory and comply with international law. They stressed that settlement growth undermines prospects for a Palestinian state. And I request Mr. Baum to join me back in the discussion for his opinion on this. 14 countries now condemning Israeli settlements.
Yes, this is expected from those countries who have adopted over the last couple of years, shall we say, an impartial attitude, although more recently some of them, as you mentioned there, specifically Ireland, Spain and Norway, have adopted a very anti-Israel stance. Now, the interesting thing about these settlements is, and this is for the benefit of your listeners, they are all in what is called Area C. Now, Area C was one of three areas, the other two naturally being Areas A and B. And Area C, under the Oslo Accords, is fully within the Israel's civil and military authority. So although it may not go any way towards enhancing the peace process, I think that for those countries to condemn Israel, it's really an irrelevance because, as I say, all these settlements, these new settlements, the new ones that have been confirmed, but the ones that already established, are in what's called Area C. Now, the reason the Israeli government have done this at this moment in time is purely for domestic purposes. The Netanyahu government is under severe pressure. If there were an election today, it would be doubtful whether the current government would survive. So this is for a domestic audience. But the fact that those countries have condemned the settlements, which are, the Israeli foreign minister is right, they are under international law because they're in Area C. What the Israeli government is doing is under international law quite fit and proper. So I can only think that the pressure is by these governments the condemnation by these governments is to put more pressure on Netanyahu because they certainly don't want to see his government survive, and also perhaps to placate their domestic audience, which in those particular countries have a very large pro-Palestinian cohort.
All right, thanks for your comment there, Mr. Baum. Appreciate you speaking to us with that explanation. And viewers, we now move ahead to some news coming in from the United States. Now, authorities say that U.S. immigration agents were involved in a shooting in the state of Maryland that left 2 men injured. The incident occurred in Glen Burnie, just south of Baltimore, as immigration and customs enforcement officers were carrying out an operation targeting 2 men alleged to be in the country illegally. According to the Department of Homeland Security, when agents approached a van carrying the men, the driver rammed ICE vehicles and then drove directly at officers in an apparent attempt to run them over. Agents then fired their weapons, striking the driver. The van later crashed between 2 buildings, injuring the passenger. Both men were taken to a hospital, with officials saying the driver is in stable condition and the passenger suffered minor injuries. Local police are investigating the shooting, while Maryland Governor Wes Moore said his office is working with authorities to gather more details and provide support. And I'll now request Satoru Nagao, who's the fellow at Hudson Institute, to join us in this discussion. Mr. Nagao, thank you first of all for joining me in this discussion. I'd start with my first question to you. Now, ICE has already been facing a lot of criticism, and the latest incident is only pointing further fingers towards Trump's deployment.
Trump's deployment itself is a little bit controversial, but at the same time, this is a appeal point of the Trump administration, and many people support Trump administration in case of their policy towards illegal immigration. So, especially this is the Christmas season. Unfortunately, the Christmas is the best timing to crack down because of the many people staying in their home. But so that's why it has happened. But at the same time, we should not forget this place, the Grand Valley, is just southern part of the Baltimore. It's indeed law and order in this place and the crime rate is very high. So that's why in the United States, of course, ICE cracking down the many illegal immigration in many places, but especially the Grand Valley, there's a high possibility that such kind of the crash has happened because even if the ICE do not involve, anyway, there are many crime in this place. So that's why, unfortunately, it has happened, and it will happen again, I think.
All right, sure. Please to continue to stay on with us as we move ahead. Now, viewers, Pope Leo XIV has delivered a strong message against war in his first Christmas homily. Speaking at Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, the pontiff condemned the destruction and suffering left behind by conflicts around the world. He warned that wars, whether ongoing or ended, leave rubble and deep, open wounds. The Pope drew special attention to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. He spoke of defenseless civilians and families living in tents exposed for weeks to rain, wind, and cold. Calling the solution and the situation a test of humanity's conscience, the Pope urged the world not to look away from the fragile lives caught in conflict. And moving on, viewers, NVIDIA has agreed to license chip technology from startup Grok and hire away its CEO, a veteran of Alphabet's Google. According to reports, the deal is for $20 billion, and Grok founder Jonathan Ross, who helped Google start its AI chip program, as well as Grok president Sunny Madra and other members of its engineering team, will join NVIDIA. Grok also noted that NVIDIA has agreed to a non-exclusive license to Grok's technology. The deal follows a familiar pattern in recent years where the world's biggest technology firms pay large sums in deals with promising startups to take their technology and talent, but stop short of formally acquiring the talent. Grok is known as inference, where the artificial intelligence models that have already been trained to respond to requests from users. While NVIDIA dominates the market for AI training and AI models, as it faces much more competition in inference, where traditional rivals such as Advanced Micro Devices have aimed to challenge it, as well as startups such as Grok and Cerebras Systems. All right, I request Mr. Nagao to join me back in the discussion here. How do you see this development, Mr. Nagao, and how are the firms, particularly NVIDIA, to gain from this?
Yes, this is indeed very important because NVIDIA is well known as a semiconductor company which dominated AI-related matters. But recently, the rising company like Grok is challenging NVIDIA's market. And so there is a possibility in some area the Grok has advantage if NVIDIA try to protect their market, but Grok can win in some area. There's a possibility such kind of situation has happened. But now the NVIDIA and Grok start to cooperate. This means that NVIDIA's advantage has increased, and Grok also find a good place to dominate some area. So this is a win-win for them. But at the same time, view from other companies, this is a big threat. So that's why this is very important. And in case of the AI-related investment, now some people worry about this looks like bubble because of the very high competitive situations happen. Many people invest and the market is growing a little bit too fast. People start to worry. Such kind of situations happen. Under such kind of situation, which company will dominate this AI-related hardware and both, of course, software also. So it's a very important key to win the competition. So that's why if NVIDIA cooperate with Grok, this is a big move. Thank you.
All right, sure. Well, thanks again for joining me here, Mr. Nagao, and speaking to us. And with that, viewers, it's a wrap on this episode of NewsX World. But stay tuned for all major news and updates.